Okay, so let's move into talking a little bit about low carbohydrate diets versus low fat diets. So there's many people out there that have been told the most effective form of nutrition to lose weight, drop their LDL cholesterol, reverse diabetes is to eat a ketogenic diet, high in fat, protein, and low in carbohydrate energy. So
Yes.
for the average person out there, the science on the internet is very confusing. Can you enlighten
Well,
us? What's going on
yeah,
here?
it's not only confusing for the average person out there, it's confusing for a lot of doctors as well, in part because we don't really learn much about nutrition in our medical training. Now, the ketogenic diet or the Atkins diet or the paleo diet or whatever name you want to attach to it, it goes through different incarnations. It keeps coming back from the dead. Um, it's based on a half-truth. And the half-truth is that Americans eat too many refined carbs and sugar and concentrated sweeteners. And as we mentioned earlier, when you when you eat a lot of sugar, pardon me, your blood sugar zooms up, your pancreas makes insulin to bring it back down, but these repeated insulin surges over time can lead to insulin resistance. So Dr. Atkins and I debated many times before he died, as it turns out, of heart disease. Um, and we agreed on that point, that Americans eat too many refined carbs. And so if you stop eating refined carbs, you're going to lose weight, which is why people lose weight on an Atkins diet. It's what you replace them with that becomes a point of difference. Now, I'd love to be able to tell your viewers that bacon and pork rind and sausage and so on are health foods, but they're not, and it's just the way it is. I would love to be able to say that, but, it's just not true. Now, on the other hand, if you replace refined carbs with what are called good carbs, fruits, vegetables, whole grains, legumes, and soy products in their natural state, they're high in fiber, which, as I mentioned earlier, fills you up before you get too many calories. You can only eat so many apples, you can get full before you get too many calories. But also slows the rate of absorption. So instead of getting these wide swings in your blood sugar, you get more of a constant level throughout the day. But instead of mortgaging your health by eating, a lot of red meat and animal protein and so on, it's not just fat versus carbs, but there's more and more evidence that the animal protein itself is harmful. Studies have shown that people who eat a lot of animal protein are 75% more likely to die of premature death from all causes, and 400 to 500% higher risk of diabetes, prostate, breast, and colon cancer, as well as heart disease. So if you actually look at you can lose weight on an Atkins diet. You can lose weight on, smoking cigarettes is a good way to lose weight. Chemotherapy is a good way to lose weight. Don't recommend it. But you can lose at least as much weight and even more if you eat or at least comparable amounts by eating good carbs. But instead of mortgaging your weight, you're enhancing it. Because it's not just enough to lose weight. You have to say what's happening in the arteries. And we've done studies showing that when you go on a whole foods plant-based diet, particularly when it's combined with meditation and yoga, exercise, and love and support, the arteries become less clogged over time. The more you do it, the less clogged they become. And the longer you do it, the more less clogged they become. Whereas on a Atkins or paleo or ketogenic diet or whatever name you want to give to it, their arteries get more clogged over time, even though they're losing weight. And so it's important to lose weight in a way that enhances your health and not that mortgages it.
It's brilliant. So in 2017, you co-authored a paper called Trending Cardiovascular Nutrition Controversies, in which you state the following, and I quote, "All sources of animal protein, including eggs, fish, poultry, red meat, and processed red meats, were noted to increase all-cause mortality relative to vegetable protein, with processed red meat being associated with more cardiovascular deaths and egg consumption being associated with more cancer deaths." So can you just give a little insight here for our listeners into how aggressive do they really need to be? Do they have to eliminate all of these products, or is it really a sliding scale where you can sort of reduce and gain a lot of benefit just from moving towards less?
Right. Well, that study was done by Walter Willett and his group at the Harvard School of Public Health, where they found that the relative risk of different diseases, that processed red meat was the highest, followed by regular red meat, then chicken, then fish, and so on. And in all of our studies, we found that, what you call a sliding scale. I wrote a book called The Spectrum that was based on the finding in all of our studies that really surprised me. When I started doing this work, I thought that the younger people with less severe disease would do better, but I was wrong. It wasn't how old or how sick they were. It was primarily a function of how much they changed their lifestyle. The more you change, the more you improve. And the more you change your lifestyle, the better you feel. And the better you feel, the more you want to keep doing it. So you get into a virtuous cycle instead of a negative one. And so, start where you are. And if you have heart disease or life-threatening disease, that's more the pound of cure. You really do have to make big changes. That's why we were able to show for the first time that you could reverse heart disease, because people didn't go far enough. The regular doctor's recommendations and the Heart Association and so on don't go far enough to reverse disease. But if you're just trying to get your blood sugar down, let's say you've got metabolic syndrome, start where you are. So in the book, I categorize foods from the most healthy, what I call group 1 foods, the plant-based foods. Group 5 are the processed red meats and so on, and group 2 through 4 in the middle. So, part of what I've learned is what enables people to make sustainable changes. And if I tell somebody, eat this, don't eat that, do this, don't do that, they immediately want to do just the opposite. It's just human nature. It goes back to, the first dietary intervention when God said, don't eat the apple, and that didn't go so well, and that was God talking, so we're not going to do that. And also I've learned that even more than being healthy, people want to feel free and in control. So as soon as I tell somebody, do this, don't do that, they want to do just the opposite. That's just human nature. And so, and if you go on a diet, chances are you're going to go off a diet, because diets are, again, telling people what to do, and people don't like to feel constrained. And so they get off the diet, they feel bad, and they have all this guilt and anger and humiliation, which really are the most toxic emotions, so you might as well just finish the pint of ice cream. Because once you label foods good or bad, it's a very small step to saying I'm a bad person because I had bad food. So, might as well just finish the burger or whatever. So we took a different approach and said, look, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And so your listeners, I'm not here to tell you what to do, your viewers. I'm saying, here's what we did, here's what we found. You decide, and if you're my patient, I say, I'll support whatever you choose because it's your life. It's not for me to tell you what to do. But instead of saying, here's a rigid diet, and thou shalt not, and you must never, and all of that, which really turns me off, is to say, look, what matters most is your overall way of eating and living. If you don't have a life-threatening disease, if you say you have high blood sugar, or you want to try to reduce or get off insulin, again, under your doctor's care, so say, what are you eating now? Well, I'm eating mostly group 5 foods, unhealthy foods. So instead of saying, well, don't eat that, eat this instead, I'd say, how much are you willing to change? Oh, no one's ever asked me that before. Oh, I don't know. I'll eat less of the unhealthy group 5 and I'll eat more of the groups 1 through 4. Okay, great. How much exercise are you doing? Not so much. How much are you willing to do? Oh, I don't know. I'll walk half an hour 3 times a week. That's good. How much yoga meditation are you doing? 0. How much are you willing to do? I don't know. I'll meditate half an hour a day. Great. How much love and support do you have? Not enough. I'll spend more time with my friends and families. Great. We'll support that degree of change, and even and we'll track it for a month or 2. Now, during that month, if you indulge yourself one day, it doesn't mean you cheated or you're bad or you failed. Just eat healthier the next. You forget to exercise one day or you're too busy, do a little more the next. You get the idea. And I just find that's a much more sustainable and more compassionate approach, because you can't fail. There's no diet to get on. There's no diet to get off. Now, after a month or whatever period of time, let's say you wanted to get your hemoglobin A1C down from 7.5 to 6.5, below 7. And let's say it came down to 7.1. You say, great, you move in the right direction. Now, eat even more of the healthier foods, even less of the others, not all the time necessarily, but move more in that direction, and then let's see how you do. Now, the other school of thought we also found, paradoxically, is to make really big changes all at once. And even though that may be counterintuitive, it's like, well, if I can't make small changes, how am I going to make big ones? But sometimes when you make small changes, you get the worst of both worlds. You have the hassle because you're not eating everything you want, but you're not really making changes big enough to feel that much better or to get much of a change in your blood sugar or whatever you're measuring. But if you go say, I'm going to go all the way to a plant-based diet, I'm just going to eat that all the time. I'm going to meditate and do yoga for an hour a day. I'm going to exercise for a half hour a day. I'm going to spend more time with my friends and family. Generally, most people find that they feel so much better so quickly because, the more you change, the better you feel, that it reframes the reason for change from fear of something bad happening down the road, like, one of the diabetic complications or premature death, to joy of living. And joy of living is what's sustainable. You think more clearly, you have more energy, you get off these medications, you need less sleep, your sexual function improves, and so on. Studies have shown that men who just one single plant-based meal caused, 200 to 300% more nocturnal erections, during the night than people who just had one meat-based diet. I mean, it's amazing how dynamic these underlying biological mechanisms are, for better and for worse, and how quickly you can feel better when you make big enough changes in your diet and lifestyle.